The new Tobago House of Assembly administration is ready to get to work. This after a two-day period of swearing in of Assemblymen, followed by all Secretaries and Assistant Secretaries. As promised by Chief Secretary Farley Augustine, there were realignments and name changes of various divisions. At his first press conference on Friday, Mr. Augustine informed he takes up the responsibility for Secretary for Finance, Trade and the Economy. Other secretaries include
Health, Wellness and Social Protection. The Secretary will be Dr. Faith B. Israel, as you can well imagine, and she will be ably assisted as Assistant Secretary Brother or Mr. Sonny Craig.
Councillor Tashia Grace Burris is now the Secretary of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation, and she would be assisted by Assemblyman Megan Morrison and Councillor Sertica Williams-Orr, Assistant Secretary in the Office of the Chief Secretary with responsibility for public administration, planning and labour.
Then we have the Division of Community Development, Youth Development and Sport. We have as Secretary Terence Baines and Assistant Secretary Wayne Clark.
The Chief Secretary stressed that food security is a priority for this PDP-led administration. As such, they have played particular focus on the agriculture sector. The division is now called the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment and Sustainable Development. This would be manned by Assemblyman Natisha Charles Panton, assisted by Assemblyman Nigel Tate.
Meanwhile, all Assemblymen except Deputy Chief Secretary Watson Duke have been assigned to a division within the Tobago House of Assembly. At his first press conference following Friday's swearing-in, Chief Secretary Farley Augustine noted it is the first time a Deputy Chief Secretary is not responsible for a division. However, Mr. Duke would be actively involved in the administration.
Mr. Duke has to work on us getting that autonomy conversation going constantly until we get it. Number two, we made a campaign pledge, perhaps since 2017, where we said we will set up in Trinidad something that's akin to a Tobago embassy, the purpose of which will be to market Tobago's products, to provide services to Tobagonians living in Trinidad, and to facilitate investments into Tobago.
Chief Secretary Augustine noted while Mr. Duke fulfilled the letter of the law, as he no longer would be receiving remuneration from the Public Services Association, there still exists a conflict of interest. As such, he was not assigned to a division. However, Chief Secretary Augustine informed Mr. Duke is pursuing an exit plan.
Mr. Duke is himself working on severing ties with his union. He is working on that. It's not as easy as people think it would be, and he believes that he needs to set up the proper exit plan to allow for continuity within the union, and so that things don't just fall apart because the head leaves. And so he needs to ease himself out of the union.
Mr. Duke was not present during Friday's swearing-in. Mr. Augustine indicated that he developed flu-like symptoms overnight and decided to stay away. All secretaries and assistant secretaries would visit their respective divisions on Monday.
In other news, TTT has been informed that ousted candidate for the Bucco-Mount Pleasant electoral district, ANCIL Dennis, has requested a check of results. This, in light of the results of the December 6 Tobago House of Assembly elections, where Mr. Dennis lost to the PDP candidate Sonny Craig by 3 votes. According to the Representation of the People Act 106, a candidate for an electoral district or his agent may, within 4 days of the declaration of the poll under Rule 104, apply in writing to the Chief Election Officer for a check of the results of the poll for that electoral district. Checks with the elections and boundaries determined that the information could not be verified at this time, and up to news time, calls to Mr. Dennis or PNM representatives for verification were left futile.